Welcome back to the Elevate Your Best podcast. My name is Michael Danklefs.
And I am Bruno Martins. And today we're going to update you all, on my business development, my journey, and learn the lessons of my experience. Not actually learn, but share the lessons of my experience.
Absolutely. So Bruno and I have been talking about this off and on for the last couple of weeks, but I thought it'd be really good to bring this to the community and at the same time kind of work through some of the things that have happened when we put ourselves out there, when we take a risk, when we invest in something new. So Bruno, if you would give us the short story of what's happened over the last couple of weeks.
Yes. The first thing, Michael, I would like to recognize is that when we were on our coaching sessions, you gave me some feedback. Have you prepared enough? Have you done this? Have you done that? And I was very defensive because I am very defensive. And I was like, of course we did. Yes, we prepared. We have this and we have that. And we actually had a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that we could have prepared better. One of those things is that a contract, it happens. I don't know if we spoke about that before, but sharing with you from the community right now, the partnership that I was in was over. The moment that we opened shop for business, it ended up that my business partner, we didn't have a contract, and he finished the partnership. I know he had his reasons, and I tried to look into his perspective. I just think it was a little insensitive. He didn't worry too much about me. That's all. But it's okay. And there are some big lessons. I'm adjusting my business plan, not to give up and to continue according to what happened. And yeah, I think that the first lesson that I could share with people is hear more of the people that are trying to help. Because particularly if you tell your story and if you share and you open up, don't be afraid to open up to tell that we are wanting to create a business. This is our plan. This is our vision. Other business owners on the area, they will help you. People got invested, Michael. People went there. They bought to support us. Sorry. They bought from the business to support us. And this is a lesson that it was clear for me as well. When we buy from a business, we are supporting that business. So I was speaking about that with the people that got there. Like we had a supermarket on the other side of the street. It was a small market, but we call it supermarket here. And I was using it as an example, like when we buy on that market right there, we are telling that business that we want more of it. And we can choose not to buy from it if we don't agree with something that they are doing. Or we can choose to buy from a small business that is struggling or just starting and tell him, we want more of you. With our support, with our money, deciding to direct our energy intentionally through that path. And this is very related with what we talk here on the Elevate Your Best, which is living an intentional life. We need to have intention, purpose in everything that we do, and that includes where goes our money, which is energy, and what this energy is feeding as business, and how those businesses are impacting our community.
Absolutely. So I guess it sounds like one piece was that if you're going into business with someone, have it in writing. Having a partnership agreement, I think, is really important. So, and I think that was one of the first questions that I asked you is, what does the partnership agreement say about what this looks like moving forward? So knowing in many ways, that is the preparation step. That is actually knowing if we go back to Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's having the end and keeping the end in mind, is know how it's going to start, but also what looks like when we're going to end. It's one of the things that I learned in one of the business classes that I was in is have a partnership agreement. It's the number one thing. If you're going to be in partnership, if it's not on paper, then it doesn't exist. A handshake and a smile works in some cases, but it rarely works in a court of law and rarely actually really puts into literal black and white what the agreement is about, what each partner is bringing to the situation, what people's responsibilities are, and the growth of where you want to see the business going, and how you're going to get out whenever you're done. So I want to make sure that we highlight that piece, because that, I think, is a necessary process of this whole partnership thing. Is a contract, a partnership agreement needs to be in place, and something that you both have invested in, something that you both have contributed to. So it's not a one-sided, it is really collaboratively built, because that's how the partnership is going to grow going forward.
Yeah, and this thing about the contract, it's important for, we can have as much conversation as we want and plan and discuss and that, but it's only time to take action after this contract is at hand. Because we had a contract that I was writing, and we were adjusting things. We were like deciding on percentages. There was a previous business that my partner had, and we were talking, how is this business going to happen? And I was making things for this business, and I was like, I understand not having equity on it. He proposed for me to make a commission, and I was like, hey, but a commission is more heavy on you, because if I have a commission of 15%, which was what he said, then it's you sell for 100, I get 15%. If I have a percentage of the profits, we pay the cost, we pay the rent, we pay the light, we pay everything, and then I get a percentage is from the profits. It's better for you. He didn't understand that. But then the main thing is, we started work before we had the contract ready and signed. And then, like Michael said, I didn't put any money as well, because I had this business plan, this business idea that was great. People loved it. But then when the bulk of the work was ready, he looked at me and say, hey, I put out the money. I put the money that bought everything to paint the walls, to fix this, to fix the bathroom. And I'm like, he actually expressed it. Why do I need you? Because the business plan, all this work was effective and it was making a difference. We had a lot of engagement. It's very hard for a brand to achieve engagement. Engagement is extremely valuable. It happened that before we actually had a contract, and I don't think that at this point he would actually sign a contract anymore, then things fall apart. So have a contract first, get things on paper, like Michael said, first. And it's also important to invest something. Both parts invest something. Both parts accept risk, because the business has, and then nobody's going to be feeling like, oh, I'm with all the risk by myself. I put it all by myself. What did you do? Because both of you or more have something tangible that you put into the mix, because intangible assets are very hard to measure.
It's really hard to account for them, for sure. The other piece that I want to make sure that we're touching on is that, especially whenever it comes to the communities that you're in, you touched on this briefly, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. As you said, there are other business owners out there. And one of the things that I've always challenged you on is, where are you getting that wisdom from? And having someone who's been there before can help provide some guidance. May not tell you exactly what you need to do, but at least potentially ask you some of the questions you may not have thought to ask. So I think that it's a matter of listening to other people in the community, specifically in the business community that you're in as you're starting a business, but also people who've actually seen it from another market and a different marketplace. So I think that there's a possibility there where other people that you trust can give you some feedback and some guidance and some direction to make it potentially more successful. And it's also where a mentor, a coach, a trainer can have a huge impact as well, because especially if they've been through year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4 of a business, there's going to be lessons you're going to learn, and potentially can short circuit some of the failures that can happen, and seeing those blind spots that you may not have actually run into. It's great to make stuff up as you go along, yes, it's fantastic. It's actually really creative and can actually be really inspiring and exciting. Though I also think that there's this opportunity to leverage the wisdom that somebody else has gained because they've actually tripped over that first, and maybe then you won't trip over it. What would you say was the biggest challenge of your part, not necessarily your partner's part, but on your part? What was the biggest challenge in kind of the beginning, middle, and end of this venture you were involved in?
Michael, listening was a great challenge. Listen to people that were helping me, actually taking a moment to stop and consider what they are talking in my scenario, because sometimes it doesn't feel like it applies, but it does. But actually, I think that this was the effect of another thing. That is what I actually want to say, which is taking a moment to stop. Like we spoke about the importance of relaxation, taking a moment to breathe. I even mentioned a circumstance that in this business journey, that I sit in front of the business with my business partner. We had a 5 minutes of silence, and then things got much lighter. I could see the problems getting solved, all the challenges that we had. But what happened is that, particularly at the end, at the last week, when I don't know, I had some trauma in my life. I even was diagnosed with PTSD by a friend of ours. And I don't know if I suffer with that anymore. I had some challenges with this, reliving some moments. But today, I don't actually, sometimes memories pop out and I feel like some heavy emotions, but it's fast and it happens rarely. But what happened is that I believe that a lot of things were happening because there were a lot of challenges. Like the owner of the place that we were, the guy that was renting to us, it was like, just a second.
The point you were making was many times you have to slow down so you can speed up. So it's not time to speed up
Yes.
yet. Sometimes it is, in the midst of the chaos, sometimes you got to sit down and meditate or think or process and work through what's next. Because if it's always about the reaction and the reflex response, it's going to be, especially if you haven't been there before, you haven't built up that muscle memory, it's going to be a real challenge in order to approach that. So I'm going to continue talking now while you've got noise in the background, just to keep this from going on, literally in the background, walking back and forth. Awesome. So it's this opportunity to realize that being slow is accurate and being accurate is fast. So it really is this idea of slowing down to speed up is really important. It's one of the things that I'm learning the best to do in some of the training and teaching that I'm actually taking on right now, is slow down to speed up. That yes, challenge it. That no, challenge it. There's an opportunity there to learn something a little bit deeper. So even taking on a new contract or a new client may be great. It's a matter of then, let's not do this because you think it's the right thing to do, because you think that's what I want because of various different reasons. It's more is this really going to support and serve you? I think that's actually really important as well. So I like that idea of a lesson of slowing down to speed up. You learn personally.
As I was saying, like with the owner of the building, it was so weird, Michael. This guy, he got there in the business and he sit and he would just stay there looking at the street. And then he would come and ask for an advancement on the rent. He came to ask for an advancement of R$2 one day, which is like 40 cents of a dollar. And I was like, dude, I can't be giving you these advancements. I'm gonna be writing recipes for you, like not recipes, receipts, the receipts from you, like every day. And then at the end of the month, I'm gonna have tons of.
So a lot of what we're sharing right now is really the challenges that we've had in building businesses. And this is the real world experiences we've had as businesses. And It's a matter of taking action. It's a matter of learning from the lessons, and the first whack may not be the best one, and maybe the second or the third, or maybe your first idea is the best idea ever, and that actually takes you on. But most super successful business people you experience and you hear their story, many times they trip and fall more times than they can count, but it's them getting back up and doing it again another time that's really been the key that's made them successful.
But sorry for the interruptions, but what I want to say is that there were a lot of things happening, a lot of things that were like putting me on the edge, because I had to deal with those things, because my partner, he would just give the guy would be there. And we heard stories of this guy that he would always be doing that. And there was a guy, a person that had a business there before, that he happened to pay 2 rents in advance in these small amounts. And he would come there with his bills and showing his bills, help me please. And I was like, hey, I had to have several conversations. Hey, I don't have to take care of you. This is your problem. Please respect. This is my business place. This is the place I need to work. I need to be productive. Can you please not bring your problems? And he was like, okay. And having to deal with those things, I believe that the moment that got harder was when my business partner, one day after we opened, came to be on the next day. Everybody was satisfied. Everybody said the place was great. Everybody was happy. People put us right on the top. And then next day he was like, I think that we are gonna end up our partnership. And that was a really big hit on me. And then that was really hard. And I noticed, Michael, looking back, that the hardest part for me was the last days, where I just needed to stop and take a breath, and I didn't do it.
And I can appreciate being so in it that you lose sight of it. And it can be really hard our emotions are good guidance systems for what is going on between what we're thinking and what we're doing. Tends to give us a really good loop if things are working correctly, if they're working the way that we want them to be working. Trauma throws a grenade in the middle of that mess so that then emotions are all over the place. And sometimes there's work you can do in order to put all those pieces back in place. If that's havening or EMDR or hypnotherapy or any number of other modalities, some tapping can help with that. Educating yourself on the tool, practicing the tool, and see if it actually helps you. But I can very much appreciate being at that wit's end. This past week, even for me, Monday and Tuesday were really long days, waking up at 7 or 8 in the morning and working until 1 or 2 o'clock at night with very little break in between. And it took me walking away for an hour or two and coming back to it and just detaching from that excitement, that elevated emotion, all that kind of stuff, to then come back and actually run down what the issue was. So I can appreciate that, especially as things are coming to an end, and it's almost like your spirit can feel it's coming to, and therefore there's this rejection, there's these other feelings, these other emotions that come up, because it's almost like you could see the writing on the wall. It was brought up, from what I remember in our conversations, a couple of times, and then it seemed to be resolved. Whatever that kernel, whatever that core issue was, that miscommunication, that disconnect between the two of you, as much as it may seem to have been resolved, I don't think it ever was, because there's still some doubt, there's still some worry in there in what happened from what you shared with me. So for future reference, how would you address that core thing? How would you get to the bottom of that?
It's a good question. I wonder that myself. Does this mean that I'm not ready to run a business? Does this mean that I wouldn't handle the emotional thing? I don't think it is the case, because a different scenario would put us into a different state. For example, if we had started small with lower risk in a smaller place, we wouldn't have those troubles. It's like, it's taking care of our environment. That's the point. That's what I can say. Let's be less going around and get to the point, because it's something I need to work as well. Take care of our environment. Don't let our environment, let's not let our environment get crowded with things like to do, with challenges, with problems to solve. Let's look for an environment that is cleaner, leaner, more objective, cutting out noises. Like, for example, the owner of this business, this is a thing that doesn't exist, like the owner of the place. This doesn't exist. This is something, this is ridiculous. Like, it's a comic. People would go there and they would comment about him and would be laughing, like, what is up with this guy?
But that then is a boundary that either was never set or was never held. Is thank you very much for all that you're doing here. We're now going to get back to business. If you could please leave so we can get back to work. And being hardcore about that in some ways. And what's the downside of that? Potentially you lose the place, possibly. So are you willing to hold that boundary if that's what's at stake, if it impacts your business? But it's take care of our environment is one piece, but that's actually on all the different levels: the physical environment, the emotional environment, the intellectual environment, the energetic environment. So you've
That's
got
true.
somebody who's comes from a scarcity mindset already, it's going to get infectious because attitudes are contagious. Always. It's one of the things that I had on my desk a couple of decades ago, was it printed out: attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching? So keeping the
Yeah.
attitudes there in a place where everybody can vibe at the same level, and people can pull you up, yes, and sometimes you've got the crabs in the bucket that keep pulling you back down. So I very much appreciate that, again, that idea of taking care of our environment on all different levels.
And taking care of our environment might mean that we need to give up the place because the owner doesn't allow us to work in peace. It's too complicated. Cut the complications, cut the hard work, like not exactly the hard work. What do I mean by the hard work? Working is hard. It should be hard, like it's work. It's something that we are transforming. But when it's productive, it doesn't feel, because we are seeing the product, we are getting results, we are celebrating our achievements. So it doesn't feel hard. But that is work that is always going to feel hard because it's unnecessary, it's unproductive, it doesn't move us forward, it doesn't allow us to celebrate. So cut this kind of work, cut the unnecessary risk. That's what I mean by taking care of the environment as well. Make sure that things are productive. And one of the biggest challenge was that as well, Michael, because it's people didn't understood as well that wasn't a working environment. So our friends would get there and they would just be chatting and distracting us, and we were trying to solve things. And I had to had some conversations, and people would invade the space of work. There was a balcony there in an area that was for us to work, and then suddenly someone that was close to us because was our friend, they would come in. And it's not good for you to be like, hey, you need to, I would do that. There was even a time where people got upset with me because there was a person there. He wanted to work with us, but he was helping me. And then he put a lot of beer bottles because we were selling beer to raise a little bit of money. And in the beginning, I had to make some money for the business because the kitchen was not ready. And my partner didn't want to put in the money from the head shop to finance the business. So I need to do something. Easiest thing to do was sell some beer, some snacks. And then he was putting some beer bottles right into the path, a tiny path that I passed by from behind this balcony to the front. And then I stumbled on those beer bottles like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, who's putting these beer bottles? And he was like, and then he explained why, because he was counting. And then he tried to help me with another thing. And I was like, dude, come here. Let me tell you something. You need to trust me that I am taking care of everything and everything is right, because he tried to help me with what's the count, how much the bill of a girl. And he said that there was one more beer in her bill. And I asked her, is there one more beer in your bill? And she was like, no. And I felt discomforting. Hey, I'm questioning this girl if there is one more beer in her bill because somebody is trying to help me. That is nothing to do with the business. And I was like, dude, you need to trust me. I'm doing everything right. All the bills are right. Please don't put the beers here, the bottles here. Allow me to do my work. and trust that everything is going to be okay, right? And he was like, okay, sorry. And then people got upset with me. They think that I was insensitive. No?
But you were, because you were under stress. And there's nothing, this isn't a judgment from me. It was being
Okay.
insensitive to him because you had your way of seeing it and he had his way of seeing it. And unfortunately, it's this really tough place when you say, just trust me, never leads to a positive result. It's because, at least to me, that I've never had that experience of just trust me. Always is that there's some reason not to trust in the first place. Otherwise, you don't need to advertise that you should be trusted. But I understand that there was a struggle there. There was a challenge there. And some of it is trusting the leader. But there's also the other half of that is that the leader needs to be trustworthy then. You have to, as a leader, you are investing every single moment in being more trustworthy by everything you say and everything that you do. And it's really easy to actually start off at a level with level 1 with somebody and grow to a 2 or a 3 or maybe even a 4 level leadership, and 1 drops you down to 1 or -1 depending on how poorly you handle that particular situation. So just be mindful of that it's clarity is really important in that. This is my role, this is your role, do you need anything else in order to complete your role, is one key thing that actually sounds like was missing there. This is what I need for you to do. Is there anything you need in order to do that? And then it's not just a matter, you do this, do it my way.
But here's the thing, this guy was not from the team. I say trust me. I don't think it was a problem of trust. I think it was, there were some people, because we have a lot of scarcity here, Michael. So there were some 2 or 3 people that they were very desperate to work with us. So they wanted us to hire them, and they were trying to show service. And we didn't know how to deal with that because we didn't expect that. This was even something I spoke with my partner. Hey, we need to see what we are going to do about this and that guy, because they are trying very hard to work for us.
I get it. And that's when you audition people. That's when you say, we're going to give this a chance for X period of time and see how you do. And at the end of that period of time, if they've done really well, then you actually bring them on and you start training them. And if they didn't do very well, you pay them for their time and send them on their way. And it can be tough to be that black and white. But that's where the clarity of the boundary comes in, is this is what I expect of you. This is what you can expect in return. And if this expectation isn't met, then the return doesn't happen.
I had a conversation with a girl that wanted to work on the kitchen. And I was like, hey, you can come. We are going to learn how to operate I don't know the name of the thing that does the burgers. It's like an iron thing that heats the grill. I don't know if it's actually, it might be a grill, but actually the image that I have of a grill is iron. There is a space between them, whereas braziers. Here we have metal that is, it's still
called a grill. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna learn together, and but you need to understand that you're gonna learn with us because you didn't have any experience. And the people that had experience, and we have 3 people that had experience, didn't show up. And we talked about those guys like before, when we were buying the equipments, and they didn't show up to work on the grill. But here's the thing, like I noticed that I was probably going to have to work on the grill myself. And I was like, hey, you can come and you can learn with me because I'll be learning how to do this. I'm going to learn how to operate the grill because we were needing. So you need to see this as a learning experience as well. And if we see that you can do it and you can learn it and that you are interested in do it, then we can discuss on how much we're going to pay you, how many, like the time that you are going to work, the days that you're going to work, and things like that. So we had a good communication with the people that we were interested into working with us. The biggest challenge was that we didn't wanted those people that were interested into working in this position, because it was not something that we were looking for. It was not something that we could pay for. And they were trying very hard to get there. And we didn't expect it. We didn't anticipate that. And we were still trying to figure out how to talk with these people because they were very close friends, and how to talk with them and say, hey, we are not looking for someone in this position, which is front of the shop. to be receiving the clients and managing the cashier and things like that. Yeah, so there were some big learning experiences. I'm still wrapping my mind around all of them and taking note on them in my journal, so I don't have to go back to this way again to learn them. And yes, a lot of humility as well needs to be acquired to learn these lessons, because I talk a lot about the ego that gets in the way, and it's very easy to see this happening with other people. Needs a reflection is required to see how my ego, like when I first mentioned, recognizing the things that you say, how my own ego got in my way and make things harder for me when they didn't, when they didn't need it to be.
Got it. And it's really hard whenever our ego gets engaged, because we don't know that it's our ego that's engaged. And I'm glad you got a chance to get to a place where you recognize. So thank you very much for sharing your experience here, because I think it's important for all of us that when we're trying a new venture, that there's going to be lessons, that when we invest, there can be big rewards, there can also be big penalties. And it's a matter of taking them as lessons instead of being losses or as failures, that I think is really important. And it's a way for us to learn how to elevate our best through those lessons. One moment, one experience, one action at a time. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us. We appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed what we're talking about, please let us know. If it's a like, a subscribe, a comment, all of that helps us know whether we're on the right track. If we're completely off the track, let us know that too, please. We love the interaction. We love the engagement. We appreciate you spending this time with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one. My name is Michael Danklefs of Elevate Your Best.
And I'm Bruno Martins. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye now. Have a great night.